JP, good morning. And getting into break before we relived a fun week on the program last week, we talked about Pete Alonso and this very unusual contractual situation he and his camp have found themselves in with the Mets. He's a foundational guy, homegrown guy, a chance to stay there for a career in the sport and have every franchise record. Is that a reality or a pipe dream at this point?
Matt and Bill, good morning. It's a very interesting time for the New York Mets in Port St. Lucie. Of course, the first full year of David Stearns as their president of baseball operations, with some key decisions to make, especially as it relates to Pete Alonso, who, as you point out, Matt, can be a longtime franchise cornerstone, but this is his final season before free agency. He is still 29 years young, so a lot of years of slugging still to go. David Stearns himself has acknowledged the most likely situation is that Pete Alonso reaches free agency when this season is over. In the last year, Pete has hired Scott Boras as his agent. Typically, Scott Boras likes his clients to be in free agency. And let's take a listen to what Pete Alonso said last week about the outlook for him this season, how he's balancing the uncertainty of not knowing where he'll be after 2024, but knowing where his heart is and always has been.
So right now, I feel really blessed that I get to be a part of this 2024 squad. I think we have a really good team. I'm super excited to get this spring training underway. We have a great group, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited to be here, and I definitely have envisioned myself of being a lifelong Met. That's something that I've definitely thought about. And I love New York. It's a really special place for my family and I've definitely thought of the idea. I've definitely welcomed the idea, but I can't predict the future. And for me, I just want to focus on this season. I just want to be the best person I can be, and I've sat back and listened. Just want to be the best player I can be. That's it.
Matt, so interesting to think about what this all means for the Mets at the trade deadline and beyond. And Pete talked about his belief in the Mets' ability to contend this year, but we know how tough the NL East is. The Braves, the Phillies. So what if it doesn't work out in terms of the Mets winning a division or getting into a playoff berth this year? And if they're below 500 at the trade deadline, then what happens? Well, we saw this past year with the Verlander and Scherzer deals, the Mets with Steve Cohen are very comfortable to include and pay down and include the money with the salary of a player to get back the best prospects possible. So you have to keep in mind that is a possibility of potentially trading Pete Alonso at the trade deadline. We're not there yet, obviously. The Mets will keep trying to sign him potentially to the long term and keep him there in New York. But as long as they're far apart on any sort of a long-term extension, you have to at least acknowledge that possibility and wonder which teams might be in the market for a big-time bat at the deadline. So this is not the last we've talked about Pete Alonso's future on our morning shows this year. I suspect it's going to be a major story as time goes on. And you referenced before, Matt, what the comps could be. Freddie Freeman with the Dodgers in free agency got $27 million per year as his AAV. Certainly that level of salary as a floor is what Alonso is probably looking for over even more years, because Alonso right now is younger than Freeman was when he reached free agency.
It's interesting because I think the Mets are trying to make comps with other star first basemen like Freeman, like Matt Olson in Atlanta. And the players' side, they're trying to make comps with, franchise stars regardless of position. They're talking about, Aaron Judge across town. They're talking about Tatis in San Diego. They're trying to position Alonso as being more that than star first baseman, because that comp is going to bring the number up higher. It's going to be fascinating to watch this. To your point on David Stearns, he's pretty steadfast. He has been able to smile at this and say, yeah, we expect him to go to free agency. Whether he's playing that like a Lieutenant Columbo, crazy as a fox guy or not, he's putting it out there that they are not going to play any reindeer games here, and if the player wants to walk, they're willing to let him do so.
Well, and one thing to really point out quickly here, Matt, let's remember this, talking about free agency in New York City. There's a guy who plays in the Bronx this year who's going to be a free agent after the season too, by the name of Soto. So you wonder. And when you think about Steve Cohen and how aggressive the Mets have been in free agency, this is the benefit, which of course David Stearns did not have in Milwaukee. When you know that there is apparently no limit on where the payroll might go, and we know the Mets were already pursuing Yamamoto very aggressively this offseason. So if you feel confident that if all goes well and he hits free agency that you are not going to be outbid, then you have no concern with Alonso going into free agency. And also if you say, hey, I want to preserve the right to go after one of the Yankees' 2 cornerstone bats this season and sign him away from the Yankees, and wouldn't that be a story on Hot Stove a year from now? And to preserve that right and flexibility for yourself as well. So I think this is, to your point, Matt, David Stearns getting used to what it's like to be the biggest of big market GMs, which he is right now in New York.
And he's going to be just fine. So let's move on, because the Mets are not the kind of spenders that people had hoped. The team that had spent the most money, that raised the most eyebrows the last couple of years, the San Diego Padres, have not been spending that kind of money this winter, in part because they already have some really great talent under contract. The question would be, where's everybody going to play this year? Teams under new management. Mike Shildt has some decisions to make, particularly up the middle in the infield.
I would say, Matt, among camp stories over the weekend, this is the biggest one of all. Xander Bogaerts is now, as of today, a second baseman. And that's a fairly remarkable development for a team that signed him to play shortstop just a year ago. That means Ha-Seong Kim, the Gold Glove winner, is now their full-time shortstop. You've got Manny Machado at third, Jake Cronenworth at first. That's the plan right now for the Padres. So around the horn, Machado and then Kim at short, and then Bogaerts at second, Cronenworth at first. Here is the player comparison, what they've been able to do. Again, Ha-Seong Kim, the reason why Xander Bogaerts was very magnanimous about this and speaking about it over the weekend is he realizes that Kim at shortstop helps the Padres be their best self. And even though Xander said maybe it wasn't the easiest decision to make, he is such a team-first guy. And Mike Shildt said that about their conversation and why Xander was able to get comfortable with it. And again, Xander even said deep down, he understood that this day was going to likely happen at some point where he moves off of shortstop. He maybe wasn't necessarily, when last season ended, thinking it was going to happen this quickly. But he said, you know what? Now my focus is to go there, try to win a championship at second base. I love the way he framed it. He said, I won a championship at third in 2013 with the Red Sox. He won a championship at short, 2018 with the Red Sox. How about winning one now at second base? You see, obviously it wasn't necessarily Bogaerts' best year defensively a year ago, so second base, getting to learn the pivot on that side of the diamond, very important. And you see what Ha-Seong Kim has done. It's amazing, and I've spoken recently with a number of Korean baseball analysts, Daniel Kim among them, about how Ha-Seong Kim has even transcended the expectations that Korean baseball observers had on how good of a defender he was going to be in Major League Baseball. He is a superior athlete, Ha-Seong Kim. So it's an exciting beginning to the year. Of course, they'll be playing games in Korea about a month from right now. We'll be seeing the Padres there against the Dodgers. They begin the Cactus League this week. And Matt, I want to make this point too. When Mike Shildt had the idea to broach this subject with Xander over the offseason and say, I'm thinking about having you move to second base, he didn't just call him. He flew to Aruba to have dinner with him at one of the best restaurants that I can say, sources confirm, I have ever been to in my life. Old Kunuku House, outside of Oranjestad, Aruba. One of the best restaurants ever, and Mike Shildt said it was an amazing meal. Xander took him there. It's local cuisine, the Old Kunuku House.
Oh, I love barbecue chips.
Old Kunuku House. I'm writing it down for my next trip to Aruba.
Yes.
Because I've never been there, and I guess, as recruiting visits go, flying to Aruba ain't such a bad one. Not bad duty at all.